Rob Edwards has got a big decision to make with regards to Tommy Conway, but he has hinted at what the future holds for the striker. This is Bonkers for Boro with me, Phil Spencer, and in this episode we are going to talk about the Middlesbrough striker, who is dividing a little bit of opinion in the last few weeks after what has been quite a tricky patch for him. Now, Conway was Middlesbrough's top goal scorer last season. He ended the season with a decent tally on the pitch, and it was hoped that this season he was going to kick on his second season at the club and really hit the goal trail early on, and it seemed like he was going to do that. He got a goal against Norwich City, then got a goal against Sheffield United at the end of August. They played on the 30th of August, but since then Tommy Conway hasn't been able to find the back of the net for Middlesbrough, which means he's on a run of 8 games without a goal for the Teessiders. Now, this is something which is it's a little bit of a concern for a striker, but at the same time, Middlesbrough have been on an excellent run of form. We've only lost 1 game in the Championship so far this season. At the time of recording, we do sit second in the table as well. So things are going pretty well as a team. And of course, Rob Edwards has a number of attacking options there. He's got Kaly, Sene, he's got David Strelec, he's got a few supporting players like some Morgan Whittaker as well, who was trying to piece together into a puzzle in the final third. And so that means that he does have decisions to make in that final third. And the question really is, can Middlesbrough afford to be accommodating Tommy Conway when he's not finding the back of the net? Well, I think as far as I'm concerned, it's a resounding yes, we can, because for me, Tommy Conway is probably Middlesbrough's most undroppable attacking player so far. Rob Edwards spoke about Tommy Conway earlier on in October, talking about his best role, because so far this season he has been moved around a little bit, which hasn't really helped his cause. He's played as a striker, he's played off the left side, he's played as a slightly deeper number 10. But speaking back in the middle of October, as quoted by the Northern Echo and Dom Shaw, Rob Edwards was saying, "There's no doubt that number 9 is his strongest position, but he's so reliable with other things, notably his work rate outside of possession. He's shown really good intelligence and selflessness as well. The message is still to be a 9, especially when the ball is on the other side of the pitch. But there's no doubt in recent game his role is slightly tweaked. But Tommy is all about the team. What we'll always try and do is get the best out of everyone who's on the pitch." So it's quite clear from what Rob Edwards is saying that he's happy with what Tommy Conway is offering Middlesbrough on the pitch. Yes, he might not have scored since the 30th of August. It might mean that his overall output in terms of goals scored isn't as great as what it should be, as what many Middlesbrough fans had hoped. But I think Rob Edwards is sort of expressing what I believe as well, and the fact that Tommy Conway is about so much more than just finding the back of the net. Yes, he does need to add more goals to his game. I think that will come. I think what I've seen from Tommy Conway at Middlesbrough so far is that he is a little bit streaky, which is no bad thing, because a lot of players are. He is someone who, once he gets a goal, he will go on a little run of games. I think when his confidence is up, he's really a player who can go 5-6 games in a row finding the back of the net. And so I've got no doubt that if he stays fit over the course of the full campaign, he will end the campaign with a good, healthy tally of goals, certainly much more than the 2 that he's got at the moment. I think that it is maybe a bit of a blip on his side of things. I think it will be a tally that will be improved on, and I think he will end the season well into double digits as far as goals scored. But I think you can look at his game a little bit deeper to see exactly what it is that he's offering to the team, because Tommy Conway is a player who presses really hard. He's someone who he's a real nuisance in attack. He's someone who works very, very hard for the team. His main attribute for me, probably off the ball, is his work rate, his intensity, his ability to put defenders under pressure when they're on the ball. He's constantly closing people down. He's constantly on the shoulder of defenders, which makes people on edge. And at the same time as that, he's also just a real pain in the neck in the best possible way for Middlesbrough fans. He's the sort of player that you would just hate playing against, because he's such a pain. He's constantly, if you watch him when he's in action, whether it's on TV or you're at the Riverside or whatever it might sort of be, and you actually watch him, he's just constantly in the ear of the defenders. I mean, so as a result of that, he's kind of forcing players into mistakes. He's forcing them into reckless decisions that they might not necessarily be doing. And he almost reminds me a little bit of Jamie Vardy in that way, that kind of S-housery, you could say, that sort of ability to really wind up defenders and force them into errors that they might not normally make. And he is a bit of a wind-up merchant, which for me is brilliant. I absolutely love watching him when he does that. And it means that he is about so much more than just goals. He does what he contributes to the team, what he does to opponent defenders, the way he links up with his teammates, for me, is a real positive. So I think that's a positive thing for me. I think the fact that he is that effective, where even when he's not scoring goals, I think other players in the team, when they're not finding the back of the net, I'm thinking maybe someone like David Strelec, but for example, maybe a little bit more. He's someone who, when he's not finding the back of the net, his overall contribution to the team drops quite significantly. I think for me, Tommy Conway is still someone who offers a really consistent level of performance to the team, even when he's not finding the back of the net. He still justifies his place in the team by what he contributes off the ball and away from finding the back of the net, which is a really positive thing to have. It means that the goals are almost a bonus as far as he's concerned. But I do think that those goals will come as far as he's concerned. But if we have a little bit of a look, I want to have a little bit of a look now at some of his statistics to see what he's done while he's been at Middlesbrough so far this season. So this is SofaScore. This is a football statistics website where you can look at players, see how they're impacting games, have a little look at the underlying data for what they're bringing to the team. And of course, you look here at Tommy Conway's performances so far this season. He's made 12 appearances. He started 11 of them. You can see his minutes played and that sort of thing. What's interesting here is if you look at his heat map for the season so far. Now, as I mentioned before, he has played in a number of different roles for the team. He's played as a number 9. He's played off the left. He's also played slightly deeper in a slightly more number 10 sort of role. But what you see here is the fact that his heat map is pretty evenly spread across the whole opposition half of the pitch, really. He's someone who does cover a lot of ground. He likes to close down play, he likes to drop deep, he likes to impact the game in lots of different areas. And that's clearly what he's been asked to do by Rob Edwards. He's been asked to be a pain in the neck, as I was saying before. He's someone who does get around and unsettle defences and midfielders, and he does drop deep and like to get on the ball and show what he's capable of. I think for me, possibly, if he was looking to address his goal tally, maybe if he was a little bit more focused in terms of what area of the pitch he was focusing in, if he spent a little bit more time in the width of the penalty area, a little bit more time in that final third, he might potentially be in a better position to score more goals. But that's just my opinion. I think he is obviously being asked to cover this ground. It is something that he's offering to the overall team. And of course, as I was saying before, the fact that he does contribute so much to the wider team is a huge plus. And if he was staying in that final third, isolated to the penalty area, he potentially wouldn't be offering as much off the ball as what he is at the moment. So that's a balancing act that Rob Edwards and Tommy Conway are going to have to find. For me, potentially, he needs to be a little bit more ruthless, a little bit more selfish by getting into that final third and staying in position so that he is in a position to affect the game as much as possible. If we look here, we can look at some of his stats there as well. 2 goals this season. Expected goals so far this season is 3.44, so he's underperforming in terms of statistics and data, but not by a huge amount. He's scoring a goal every 446 minutes, which isn't the greatest. Total shots per game is 1.8, so that could potentially be higher. Shots on target per game is 0.7. Big chances missed is 7, so that's quite telling. He has missed some really big opportunities. I think you've seen it particularly in the last few weeks. He's had a couple of really big chances against Sheffield Wednesday, against Ipswich, against Wrexham. That's just in the last week or so, where he's had a few one-on-ones where he just hasn't really made the most of them. He sort of scuffed his effort, potentially because he's fallen on his left foot in the penalty area, but he hasn't really been able to make the most of them and their chances, which on a different day, potentially last season when he was on real top form, he would have undoubtedly been finding the back of the net with them. You think of that, for example, that half chance against Blackburn Rovers when he turned the defender and he was still on the edge of the area. It was an awkward bounce and he hit a really sweet volley into the top corner of the net. That's what Tommy Conway's capable of. You think that maybe when it clicks for him, he will be converting a lot more of these chances. But 7 big chances missed is quite a lot so far this season. His goal conversion is just 9% as well. So yeah, again, it's that finishing, which is a bit of an issue. Goals from inside the box. He's only scored 2 out of 20 opportunities that he's had there. So it's a situation where Tommy Conway will be looking to address his goal scoring form. I do think he needs to. I do think he just needs to add that final piece to the puzzle to be a really top level, championship level striker. I think he's capable of doing it. As I said, I do think he'll end the season comfortably in double digits for goals, because I do think the form that he's on at the moment, I think he should be performing better. I think he's capable of performing better, and it might just be a case of being a little bit more ruthless in attack. And if Rob Edwards can start playing him a little bit more like he has been doing as an out-and-out number 9, that could be really beneficial for him as well. But that's what I think. I also caught up with Craig Johns from Teesside Live, who spoke a little bit about Tommy Conway and the attacking conundrum facing Rob Edwards, and he was saying that what Tommy Conway brings is about a lot more than just goals.
Aside from the obvious talking point from the Wrexham game, which was Rob Edwards' halftime cull and how ruthless he was with his changes in that one. For me, I think the key takeaway from the draw with Wrexham on Saturday was just how important Tommy Conway is to this Middlesbrough side right now. I think in time, hopefully, players who have come in this summer, attacking players, so Sven Pan and Kaly Sene, who started the Wrexham game, and then David Strelec, who hasn't quite yet got up to speed either in a Boro shirt. I think in time, all three of those, and Sonche Hansen to add to that list, who didn't get on the pitch against Wrexham, in time, I think we'll hope the kind of get up to speed and start creating those connections with teammates and becoming more impactful within games, which at the moment they're not, and that will kind of lessen Tommy Conway's importance to this Middlesbrough team, although I still think he'd have a big part to play. I'm not saying he wouldn't have that, of course, but I think at the moment, because of those four players in particular not quite having the impact in games that obviously we'll hope in time they will. It just for me heightens how important Tommy Conway is to Middlesbrough. I think that, as I say, was really highlighted in the Wrexham game because first half there was just no connection there whatsoever. There was no balance to the attack, and the ball just didn't stick at all. The four players who did start that game just had no connection whatsoever, and there was no way through the Wrexham defence as a result. What you immediately saw when Tommy Conway came on the pitch for the second half was a lot more connection. And I think some people maybe have looked at Tommy Conway in recent weeks when he hasn't been getting on the score sheet and he hasn't been scoring goals, and you've got to see at times his finishing hasn't been up to the standard that the high standards that he set himself in the last few seasons. Um, I think people might have been guilty of looking at Tommy Conway and just thinking, he works hard for the team, he runs a lot. But I think what you saw in the second half against Wrexham was just how important he is to the link-up play as well, and how well he links the play up in Boro's attack, how he's always involved in attacking play. And for me, obviously there was four half-time changes, and then David Strelec came on for the last 15, 20 minutes or so of that game. For me, it was Tommy Conway more than any other player who had an impact in a much better second half for Boro in how he got involved in the play. And I say, without doubt, he'll know himself. I think you can see he's been frustrated with the fact that he hasn't scored now for 8 games, and he has passed up some decent chances. While I don't always think the service to him has been excellent, and obviously for some of those 8 games he was also playing in a wider role as well rather than his more natural centre forward role. I do think he'll be disappointed to have missed some of the chances he has missed along the way. But I wouldn't by any means be concerned about that. I think we all know what Tommy Conway has in the locker in that regard. And as I say, I wouldn't say many of the chances he's passed up have been, ones where you think he should definitely score, like absolute sitters. He's been unfortunate, particularly at Sheffield Wednesday, with some good goalkeeping as well to deny him. But in general, I think what you saw was just how important he is to Boro's overall play. Not just scoring goals, but a centre forward has an important role within the team beyond goals as well. And I think that was highlighted in the Wrexham game with how much Middlesbrough's attack just didn't really get going, didn't function whatsoever without, the general play of Tommy Conway.
So that was Craig Johns of Teesside Live speaking to us here at Bonkers for Boro about Tommy Conway and what he brings to Middlesbrough's team. As I mentioned before, for me, Tommy Conway is undroppable at the moment. I think for me, he's the most consistent performer, both in terms of goals and outside of that, in terms of his overall contribution to the team. And he has to be starting every single game because of what he brings to the team. I'm really keen to hear from you. I want to know what you think about Tommy Conway and how he fits into Middlesbrough's team. Is he undroppable for Middlesbrough under Rob Edwards? Drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think of Tommy Conway. And if you have enjoyed this video, please do hit like, please do hit subscribe, and I will catch up with you next time.